The short story attempts to illustrate the unethical and injustice treatment of Aboriginal people when dealing with the authoritative forces in the cities of Australia. The story positions the reader to empathise with Indigenous characters and how their behaviours are shaped by how they are treated. Archie Weller is a contemporary Indigenous Australian novelist from Australia. He positions his audience to feel empathy towards Johnny and the other broken Aboriginals. He has intentionally created this connection, being Aboriginal himself, and this story may have been a previous real-life encounter of a typical Aboriginal at the time. The negative impacts of colonisation are still impacting Indigenous people today. The remaining injustices of colonisation, such as displacement, exploitation, and violence, started from the first contact in the 17th century. This behaviour towards Indigenous people was because the British colonists had no understanding, respect, or value of the Indigenous people. They have been marginalised in all aspects of life and denied their rights and privileges. The cultural disconnection and weakening of identity is the main cause of struggles Indigenous people face today. The narrative point of view. The short story, Stolen Car, follows the journey of a young Aboriginal boy from the country travelling to Perth. The story, however, is through a third-person omniscient point of view because Weller uses the terms he, they, and them throughout the text. Narrative voice. Throughout the story, Weller uses figurative language such as metaphors and similes to create a harsh and sincere voice. The passage, orchids have tamed the crude wilderness, but now a new savageness, the city itself, squirms like the awakening pupae of some cruel giant insect. Use of describing words crude, cruel, and savageness to position the reader to feel unsettled further emphasises the harsh voice. Characterization of Johnny. Johnny's innocent upbringing is slowly exposed to the evil nature of society of the city when he develops the understanding of the cruel and unfair treatment of his people by the superior white people, the police officers. The first passage of the story describes Johnny as thin and dark as an ancient snag hidden in a river. His eyes were the first thing anyone noticed about him, gentle. The simile comparing Johnny to a snag hidden in a river refers to a standing dying tree alone in a river. This further connotes that his humble upbringing and low social background has made him not quite visible in his community and later foreshadows his existence in the big city. In addition, his eyes were described as gentle, and as your eyes being the window to your soul, gives insight for the reader on Johnny's inner world as innocent and pure. Character development of Johnny. Johnny's character at the start of the story is naive, but once he is exposed to the harsh reality of police brutality in the city, after an incident where Johnny is taken to jail for a crime he had not committed, his character slowly becomes similar to the others he met on his journey. He despises the police, finds trust in only himself, and now cares for the world around him. Johnny was an innocent boy from the bush described as a good worker, footballer, never been in trouble before, by the magistrate. The car is a symbol for Johnny's freedom. He finds peace and privacy driving the car towards the ocean. The ocean itself connotes a free, relaxing place. The car gives a sense of power and control that he hasn't felt before. Having the police strip him from his individuality and human rights, he can finally feel dominant. The last passage, Weller states, he couldn't control the creature he created. This represents Johnny's behaviour from good to evil taking the worst of him. Dialogue. The story uses slang to build character and representations of the Aboriginals. For example, when Wallaby drives erratically, his slangy use creates a persona that suggests a lack of education. The slang also provides a contrast to the well-spoken white people of the story. Conflict. The initial conflict of the story is discrimination and marginalisation of the Aboriginals by the white people. Western society has constructed a generalisation that suggests Aboriginals commit crimes and are menaces of society. To be compared as a menace suggests a threat and the possible danger you hold towards the community. Johnny is considered an outcast, being powerless and oppressed in the city of Perth. Moreover, when Weller stated this is what he had come here for, enjoy himself, then go home, but he can't go home, not now, restless, uneasy and bitter like the city that has adopted him, suggest Aboriginals are denied their identity and culture in the city. It is a target achieved by the whites in order to promote their authority to keep the power they hold. Setting. The story's landscape is first initially set in a colourful country described as golden laughter of the sun and beautiful old red gum, then shifts to a gloomy landscape of dull streets. The chosen figurative language helps the reader picture the scenes and relate the character's emotions to it, like for example, Johnny's character development starting at a content inner peace to feeling defeated and miserable. This invites the reader to feel sympathy and empathise towards Johnny. Meaning and reader response. The story covers a wide range of political issues through short narration discussing the social and cultural turmoil of Aboriginal community. As a reader, I was positioned to feel empathy towards Johnny and the beaten and broken Aboriginals he had met on his journey. The story sheds light on the Aboriginals' perspective that were marginalised as menaces by the white community. Stolen Car helps challenge the idea and reveals that the Aboriginals were in fact the victims of Western society and not menaces at all.